What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video breakdown. In today's video, we're going to be diving into these two documents in detail. I'm going to be reading my take on both of these documents and sifting through some of the very interesting material surrounding the DAML smart contract platform, that digital asset built out, and Canton network. These two documents come directly from the Bank of International Settlements, and I truly feel like they flew under everyone's radar. They're from 2021, 2022, but they have some very, very juicy information that just goes to show how embedded into the restructuring of the plumbing of this financial system Canton Network and digital asset truly is. So stick around with me for today's video breakdown. We're going to be reading thoroughly through both of these documents, going over some of my highlights. We're going to take a look at some of the announcements that coexist with these documents straight from digital asset. You guys are going to love this one, especially if you hold Canton coin. Now, as always, remember, none of this is financial advice. This is just my take on these documents and me giving you guys this research information. So first, shout out to hypebeast.eth because he was the one that posted this just the other day, which kind of led me down this rabbit hole to go and find these documents myself. But he said Bank of International Settlements, Canton Network. Remember, Bank of International Settlements told you about the network of networks. Now I have 100% proof that they have been working with Canton all the way back since 2021, Project Genesis and DAML. So let's go into this. Let's dive in. And I want to give you guys my take on it because I feel like this was massive, like absolutely massive. Confirms Canton Network, in my personal opinion, 110%. Again, my personal opinion. I'm not telling you guys to go out there and buy Canton, but I have a firm belief after reading these documents, Canton Network is going to be one of the networks that helps run the future financial infrastructure. So I said here, starting off, Canton is not replacing the system. And I'm going to read my takes and then we're going to go into the documentation themselves. So Canton Network is not replacing the system. It's upgrading the plumbing underneath it. Considering Canton is still flying under the radar for most, this is massive. For years, bond issuance and settlement worked, but it worked through fragmentation, manual reconciliation, and siloed systems. This line directly from the Bank of International Settlements states, and it is powerful. Prior to the prototype, no technology offered this end-to-end settlement automation and required significant reconciliation between siloed systems. I said, let that sink in. Settlement existed, automation existed, blockchains existed, but fully compliant, privacy preserving, synchronized, multi ledger, end to end automation, that did not. This prototype was the shift. When you see language like this directly from the Bank of International Settlements, you are not looking at theory. You are looking at infrastructure evolution. DAML is the smart contract language created by digital assets. The Canton network is built using DAML as its core execution layer. So when the Bank of International Settlement says the DAML prototype strictly adheres to legal requirements and automates the end-to-end settlement, they are literally describing infrastructure powered by digital assets, DAML technology, same foundational stack that underpins Canton. Now, I want to go into detail and actually show you guys that in the document, it literally mentions that they're utilizing Canton. All right. So we'll get into that as we go through the documents. Then I'm going to come over here. Okay. And just go on to continue with some of these screenshots. Like I mentioned, we'll get into these reads here in just a second. So, matter of fact, you know what we'll start off doing is we'll read just kind of some highlights from this first piece here, and then we'll go into my post here. All right. So let's read Project Genesis report. Shout out to, again, let's go back over just so you guys can see his handle. Shout out to hypebeast.eth for posting these documents. This is a repost off of your documents find. So shout out to you, brother, for opening up this rabbit hole, opening up this can of worms for all of us, right? Project Genesis Report 3, a prototype for green bond tokenization by digital asset and GFT, November 2021. Again, these documents are slightly a few years old, but the juice inside of them cannot be ignored. So coming down here just to enlighten you guys on what this is. Genesis, the BIS Innovations Hub first green finance project, explores the green art of the possible through combining blockchain smart contracts, Internet of Things, and digital assets. Together with 6 partners, the project achieved 2 prototypes that bring to life the vision that an investor can download an app and invest in any amount into safe government bonds, which will develop a green project over the bond's lifetime. The investor can not only see accrued interest, but also track in real time how much clean energy is being generated and the consequent reduction in CO2 emissions linked to the investment. Further, the investor can sell the bonds in a transparent market. The present report shows the technical infrastructure of the prototype created by Digital Asset. All right. So this is that document, and I'm just going to thoroughly read through some of my highlights here because it is honestly mind blowing how all of this stuff, especially considering that I was heavily reading Bank of International Settlement documents back in 2021, completely missed this one. Now, I personally did not start researching Canton Network until 2023. So there's a reason why I missed it, right? Coming here, it says, through past work with the industry, the digital asset team has learned that granular privacy, data segregation, and trust are key requirements for adoption. So, what we utilize for this project is digital asset modeling language, a smart contract programming language whose distinguishing features are the built in models of authorization and privacy. DAML interoperability protocol is next generation distributed DAML runtime that implements these models faithfully. By partitioning the global state, it evolves both privacy problems and the scaling bottleneck of platforms such as Ethereum, right? So there's a direct hit at Ethereum here. It allows developers to balance auditability requirements with the right to forget, making it well suited for building GDPR compliant systems. The DAML interoperability protocol handles authentication and data transport through our so-called synchronization domains. Domains can be implemented in different ways depending on trust requirements. Domains can be deployed at will to address scalability, operational, or trust concerns. They are permission but can be federated at no interoperability cost, yielding a virtual global ledger. Look at this, yielding a virtual global ledger that enables truly global composition of business workflows. Huge. And you can see right here in these little tiny infographics, DAML is the underlying architecture of all of this. Okay. So this was a huge find. Coming back over here to some highlights from my post. This was that intro that I read to you. But now reading this, okay, I said read this carefully. The document explicitly says DAML was critical to the success of the project. So I'm going to go over all these little tiny highlights from Digital Asset themselves and go over this a little bit more in detail, reading thoroughly through some more highlights. But my take on it, it says, the document explicitly says DAML was critical to the success of this project. With DAML, businesses have access to Canton, a privacy-enabled blockchain. DAML enabled privacy-preserving data sharing across untrusted systems. Canton provides the privacy-enabled multi-domain blockchain layer. So, structurally, DAML equals the application plus smart contract logic layer, and Canton equals privacy-enabled synchronization plus domain coordination layer. DAML was critical. DAML provides access to Canton. The prototypes require privacy, preserving multi-party synchronization. So, then, Canton was a critical architecture component of what made this possible. This is not speculation, not assumption. That's directly implied by the stack described. This was synchronized, compliant, privacy protected infrastructure for regulated markets. This is the plumbing infrastructure quietly being upgraded, right? So let's just take a look at some of these highlights here. As you can see directly in the documentation, it mentions right here, starting off, Project Genesis demonstrates that digital assets residing on a blockchain can enhance efficiency by shorting bond settlement from T+2 to near real time, while also connecting the segregated order books managed by multiple banks and brokers. Right here, it says, it is critical for banks to preserve their clients' data without sharing across untrusted systems. DAML's privacy preserving features allow that data sharing while preserving the client's data. And it says here, DAML was critical to the success of this project for the following reasons and names those reasons. Now, if we come over here to this document from Digital Asset themselves, reading thoroughly into this, this is from June 21st, 2024, and it's talking about this Project Genesis. So reading some of this, it says the first phase, because there was a second phase. I'm going to show you guys how Canton embedded in the second phase as well. The first phase of Project Genesis, together with GFT and All Infra, the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, and the collaboration with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, developed a DAML-based prototype with the goal of improving efficiencies in the distribution of green bonds and facilitating direct real-time reporting on their environmental impact down to the individual bondholder. The BIS was able to construct tokenized bond models that drive two major value propositions: capturing bond lifecycle events, traceability, And it says DAML was critical to the success of this project for the following reasons. And again, going through those reasons, I'm not going to sit here and bore your guys' time. But down here it says using DAML to tokenize green bonds, Project Genesis provides for the structural representation of cash flows, events, and rights and obligations of the ecosystem of participants, enabling a complete model of functionality of the assets on chain. Then here it says Canton privacy enabled blockchain layer. With DAML, businesses have access to Canton, a privacy enabled blockchain that complements other blockchains by enabling participant nodes to join one or many domains while also protecting privacy with the benefits of a golden source of truth and straight through processing. Project Genesis demonstrates that digital assets residing on a blockchain can enhance efficiency by shorting bond settlement time from T+2 to near real time. Now, what I like the most about this document here, all right, so it says technologies used across the Project Genesis prototype, and it specifically says Canton privacy enabled blockchain layer right here. But it also says with DAML, this is just reiterating, with DAML, businesses have access to Canton, a privacy enabled blockchain that complements other blockchains by enabling participant nodes to join one or many domains. I'm highlighting that because in this post here, I say to you guys, something else I want to highlight for all those creating competition between things like Link, XRP, Canton, and many others, because I've seen it all. Everyone is always arguing about which blockchain wins is missing the architecture shift happening in plain sight. The document specifically states Canton complements other blockchains. Complements, think about that word, not replaces, not competes, not eliminates. Canton Network is designed to sit alongside other blockchains, connecting domains, preserving privacy, and enabling synchronized workflows between institutions. It's infrastructure for coordination. It allows participant nodes to join one or many domains while protecting client data and maintaining a golden source of truth. That is not a layer one trying to be other layer ones. That's a privacy enabled coordination layer for regulated finance. When something is built to complement instead of compete, it usually means it's aiming to integrate into multiple systems, not fight against others. So I thought that you guys would really enjoy that, especially considering all the like back and forth, oh, Link is better, Canton is better, XRP is better rhetoric that exists in like the retail space. They're not competing. They're not competing whatsoever. They're here to complement other blockchains, which just is huge in my personal opinion. So I really wanted to show that to you guys. Coming over here, all right, because this project continued to carry on. And so not only did Canton sit, at the heart of the first Project Genesis 1.0, okay? But if we come over here to Project Genesis 2.0, all right? So this is Project Genesis 2.0, smart contract-based carbon credits attached to green bonds. This is really going to blow your mind just to show you guys how embedded this is, because not only did they use digital assets, DAML, and obviously, of course, Canton, but they also used Goldman Sachs digital asset technology. And we know Goldman Sachs digital asset platform sits on top of Canton. And they told us all of this years ago. This is crazy. Watch what I'm going to show you guys. So here it says, as an extension to Project Genesis 1.0 successful proof of concept on the tokenization of retail green bonds using both a public blockchain and a permission blockchain, Project Genesis 2.0 sought to address issues of greenwashing and additionally of green bonds, thereby enhancing the transparency, objectivity, and environmental integrity of the green bond market. This prototype developed in conjunction with Goldman Sachs, All Infra, and Digital Asset Consortium showcase a simulated solution for end-to-end digital flow for institutional green finance. The straight-through process via blockchain-based platform is able to digitally track, deliver, and transfer MOIs in addition to tokenizing the issuance of the green bond itself. So as we scroll down here, it's a pretty lengthy document. It's 87 pages long. So here it mentions Goldman Sachs, hereafter referred to as Goldman Sachs, along with digital assets and All Infra, have collaborated to provide a prototype solution for Project Genesis 2.0. So there it goes to confirm that digital asset was also involved in 2.0. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Okay. So, first, just to confirm, Canton is mentioned in this document. It says Project Genesis 2.0 leverages digital assets, privacy enabled blockchain, Canton. So there's 110% direct confirmation that they leverage the Canton blockchain. In conjunction with DAML smart contracts, Canton stores every state transition in the ecosystem being modeled, delivering three key benefits. And it mentions those three key benefits, but right down here it says true smart contract interoperability. across Canton networks while maintaining the privacy properties of each independent ledger. This means that any two or more applications written in DAML and running on Canton Ledger can be combined both at the language level and, more importantly, at the runtime level. Okay, so there's direct confirmation from a Bank of International Settlements document that they use and tested Canton's blockchain, right? This is crazy. Then here it says the Goldman Sachs blockchain platform ESG prototype provides flexible and robust integration and mapping services between on chain processes and ledger transactions and off chain traditional systems. Only DAML participant nodes hosting only, and all the way to full usage of distributed ledger technology in DAML node hosting. Then down here, it gives the deployment architecture, and you can see that DAML sits underneath of all this, right here. And what I find interesting about this is, remember, this took place in 2022, and it mentions Goldman Sachs blockchain platform. Okay. So if we come over here and we go back to 2023, check this out, January 10th, 2023. This document, I know that it's kind of small on your end. All right, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit for you guys, but it specifically says Goldman Sachs recently announced that the bank's new digital asset platform is live 1 year into their engagement of digital asset. So again, a year back from 2023's 2022. And what were they doing in 2022? All right, you can see here Goldman Sachs blockchain integration was part of this as well. So not only did they use Canton technology in this, but they used Goldman Sachs technology, and Goldman Sachs technology went live with Canton a year after. Okay, this is huge confirmation that Canton is for a fact being utilized after these prototypes and after these tests, and is embedded into traditional finance. All right, it says Goldman Sachs digital asset platform is developed on top of digital assets, DAML smart contract language, and Canton right there. Right. And then if you want to confirm that even a little bit further, you can just go directly over to the Canton website. Okay. And it says right here, Goldman Sachs digital asset platform GSDAP is natively on Canton network, providing market leading tokenization services for regulated financial markets. So these documents, in my personal opinion, are super, super juicy. And honestly, I'm not even going over all the juice inside these documents. But with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video breakdown. Real quick, I was trying to rush through these documents because I know reading through these can be relatively boring. But nonetheless, I just wanted to show you guys that Canton is not competing with these other chains, these other layer ones. It is complementing these other layer ones. And anybody that tells you otherwise is just there to distract you guys on the mainstream Twitter retail space. I encourage you guys to dive into these documents and read them yourselves, because they will just enlighten you into so much more information than the surface level stuff that exists on Twitter, right? Via all these opinionated influencers that try to create conflict between different layer ones, when in reality, the layer ones themselves aren't creating any conflict. So with that being said, showing you guys that Canton is at the heart of this digital transformation. If you guys enjoyed this, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Both these documents and many more can be found inside the private CYPRX Discord, inside our research section. Blessings to you guys. As always, be cognizant, be aware out there. Remember, none of this is financial advice, and I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown.